Let's talk about the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, China and indeed the Victorian government would say that this is just a lovely way of China helping to invest in transport infrastructure, trading infrastructure around the world, and it's generous and it's sensible. But the Australian national government decided not to get involved because there are strategic aims and objectives in here that further Chinese interests rather than our own. China just plays us off a break. It says, all right, we forget about Canberra, we'll try and pick off a state. Isn't this a problem when you can have state governments essentially undermining national foreign policy?
In short, Chris, yes, it is a problem. The federal government very wisely, in my opinion, has declined to participate in the Belt and Road Initiative. And when other countries in our own backyard, when our friends and allies in the Pacific ask us for our advice about whether they should participate in the Belt and Road scheme, we tell them to think very carefully about whether it's in their national interest to do so. There is a litany of examples from ports in Sri Lanka to all across the world and the region where substandard infrastructure has been built at an enormous and uneconomic cost, and developing countries have been loaded up with debts that they cannot pay back. It's been likened to debt trap diplomacy, where countries who can't pay it back effectively have to hand over assets and with it their sovereignty to the Chinese Communist Party. So it's very unhelpful that the Victorian government has signed onto this, and when other countries in the region are considering whether they'd like to, they on the one hand see the federal government has not signed up to it, but on the other hand they can see the Victorian government has, and that will cause at the very least some doubt in their minds about whether they should participate.
Well, just briefly before we let you go, we'll talk about what China's aim is here. I'm just going to show a cartoon here that's going to appear in the Australian newspaper tomorrow by our good friend Johanna Sleek. I'm not certain whether you can see it, but they have a map of Australia and they have a red flag, a Chinese flag across the state of Victoria, breaking away from Australia, and they're saying to Xi Jinping, despite the pandemic, our island building initiative in southern waters continues unimpeded. Now, that's brilliantly funny and insightful from Johanna Sleek. They're trying to break Victoria away from Australia and towards China, towards supporting China. Is that, in very graphic terms, exactly what's going on here?
Johanna Sleek is a genius, Chris, and his father, Bill, who I knew very little but occasionally would be very proud of him. He's brilliantly captures a lot of issues, and that one included. And I think on this we should remember that the Chinese Communist Party acts only in its national interest, in its own self-interest, and they're entitled to pursue their own national interests as they do. But other governments, the Australian government and the Victorian government, should think very carefully about whether it's in our interest to further their national interests. Sometimes it might be when it's mutually beneficial trade, but other times when it's enhancing their regional stature when it comes to something like the Belt and Road Initiative, I don't think it is. And very clearly, Chris, the Victorian government has no expertise in foreign policy. They should stick to the many issues they've already got on their own plate, like restarting the Victorian economy again, getting kids back in the classroom in Victoria, rather than wading into things they've got no expertise and understanding in.
Spot on. Thanks so much for joining us, James.